Okay. Hello, Dr. Rajesh, how are you?
Hey, David, how are you?
Really good.
I think I joined some other link. I don't know. There are two links in my calendar. So I dropped from there and joined here. So CDX and test design, though they are two different meetings or same
It should
meeting?
be, no, it should be the same link
Same link, okay.
for both, for any CDX meeting.
Yeah, I don't know.
Uh,
You were not there. Maybe I joined again and you are here.
okay. Um,
Hey,
let's
David, are
see.
you proposing anything for the NOFO?
Oh man. Let's talk offline on that because this is a recorded call, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we can talk after this meeting.
Sure.
I think you had joined a different call. Yeah. 1 p.m. Eastern time. November 14. Oh yeah, this is the one. But oh, you had joined the Friday meeting. Let's see how many people joined today. Not. I was planning to do a quick working meeting. Maybe let me find my Zoom window. Zoom tends to hide the windows, and now. Oh, okay. We have people. All right. Hi, Boom, Sudarshan, and Nathaniel. How are you?
Hi.
Pretty good.
Give me 1 second, and we'll get started. Okay. Okay. Rajesh, were you in the CDX meeting a couple of weeks ago?
Maybe I do. Yeah, it was short.
Mm. Tony was what Tony was talking about is when there's a when test planning is done, people would create a spreadsheet, kind of list the different test modes, and then for each test mode assign pins. Have you done something like this? Have you seen it done? How does that work? I mean, how does test planning work?
Normally, the pin level I have seen some pin-based testing. You do have some pins, and you can from the pin you can enter the pin test modes, whatever you want to assign it. But normally, JTAG will be the first option to get the test modes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my question is more about pin assignments for test. I hope I'm expressing right what I'm thinking, and that is, you need to plan which pins you're going to use for tests, right?
Yeah. So that will be documented in the spreadsheet. Normally, you will get that spreadsheet for entire chip pin from package from the chip lead, he or she will be maintaining he will be talking to packaging folks and everything, right? So we need to work with them and see which pins are available for DFT or scan, especially scan ins and scan outs. And then we can
What does that spreadsheet look like?
so basically it's like all pin, there will be multiple stakeholders for that spreadsheet, user, even packaging folks, and there will be all the pins listed, including VDD, ESS pins, and package assignments and ball assignment. But for us, we just need to know what are the which pins are by die and which pins are output only and which pins are input only and all that stuff. That will be listed in a full list. And then among them, there will be some pins may not be used for test purpose. Then we'll need to get it bind. But if there are some BIDA pins, we can use it for scan-ins and scan-outs, especially DDR pins and all that. So I don't have the exact example to show you right now, but I've used it in the past.
Yeah. I'm not looking for example. I want you just to understand the process that people go through, right? Because basically what we want to do with the test extension to CDXML is enable that process carrying that data, right? I understand maybe it's done in a spreadsheet, but it needs to go further down the flow. And CDXML is a good carrier for that. So purely from users workflow, I'm trying to imagine how that looks, right? Is it okay? So you have a list of pins, which you know are input.
In a higher level, right? What will happen is DFT architect will come out with the top level architecture, and mostly pins are needed only for pin based scan. Otherwise, for a built-in self test and all, mostly it is done through JTAG. And once the architecture is fixed, at top level we have decompressor, compressor combination, how many minimum pins are required to drive the data from the ATE to inside the chip and get it out from the chip. So if you have set 25, according to the architecture, 25 pins and 25 ins and 25 routes, then we need to go to the chip lead and the pin people to see we have a requirement for 50 pins. 25 will be ins and 25 will be outs. And then just give us which we can share for the test purpose. And there'll be dedicated pins for JTAG like TCK, TMS.
Yes.
And TDI and TDO, those cannot be shared. But even for compression, if you add compression inside, there will be some requirement from compression tool, CAD tool, that some of the clock needs to be a dedicated pin. So then we'll need to ask that. Maybe 2 to 3 extra dedicated pins. And then all the other pins will be sort of scan-ins and scan-outs. And if there are some pin-based memory access, then there'll be some other stuff. But this has been in a very, very long time ago. But these days, everything is through JTAG based. So there's no pin-based access mostly for the memories. So that's the, I only say scan is the only major consumer of pins. I don't know other people have any other experiences on pins for DFT purpose.
How does that? How do different tests or test modes impact the pin assignment? Right? You said you're going to want 50 pins. Are these also broken down into different test modes, where you say for this mode I need that many pins, and for the other mode I need these other pins, or I can reuse pins for between this mode and that mode? How does that work?
No, if you want to have a pin-based test mode access, which is maybe possible, because then you can have just 2 or 3 pins, or depending upon how many test modes you have. If you have 3 pins, at least you can have 8 test modes, different test modes. Like when all the pins are all 0, then it will be the functional test mode. Then you do not enter any test mode. But if you have specific test mode for some debug purpose, then you can have some encoding on these 3 pins. Then those 3 pins will be test mode only.
Okay.
Test mode 1, 2, 3. That's it. Or test mode 1 and 2. Then one can be scan mode, pin based scan mode, or then other can be JTAG based also, and the other can be a clock stop or scan dump. Then you have to make sure that that mode is set up, because the pin base is used. The AT folks are very happy. They do not always want to JTAG to JTAG, but pin is for them. It is quicker to enter the mode. That's my experience. So apart from 50, there may be 52 pins, 2 pins for test mode selection.
Okay.
The other 50
And
pins are only for scan-ins and scan-outs. They do not control any modes.
okay. Okay. So these 50 pins, is it possible that some of those, say 10 are used in mode 1, the other 10 are used in mode 2, the other 10 are used in mode 3, then the 38 pins total are used in mode 4? Is that possible?
Yeah, it is possible, depending upon if you are single chain mode or parallel chain mode. You know?
Okay. 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 I understand. Now I understand what um what we are talking about. Give me one second. I want to start the meeting minutes on this one. Make sure I capture this. Give me 1 second. I need to bring up the document that we have, the running document. I got excited talking about pins and forget to maintain the meeting minutes. So I need to go back. This is this. Ah, okay. You also my password. It's 20 dots. It is 11. What is it? 14. Okay. So dedicated pins for JTAG, dedicated pins for mode select. Is that correct, that the mode select pins will always be dedicated, or in some cases maybe JTAG?
So what will happen is they will be used for regular functional operation once the chip gets packaged and comes out of AT. So only on AT they will use this.
Yes. But how about specifically the test mode select?
Yeah. There is
Would
no
those
test mode
be?
select. I mean, test mode will be some 2 or 3 pins dedicated to choose a test mode.
Yes.
So
So there will be, but those will be dedicated pins on the package, which you would use on the AT to well, select a mode, right, based on the state of those pins. By default, they will all be 0 for functional mode, but for
yeah.
test modes, okay. But these will be dedicated.
I believe they could be shared. They could be shared too. But when you are in, especially in structural test mode, they will be only used for setting the test mode.
Okay.
So I don't know whether it can be
Explain.
dedicated. Means we do not have the luxury of this. Even these days, we do not have luxury of many pins on available. So
Yes.
mostly they will be shared, but only in the test mode they will be used for the test selection.
Okay. How do you enter test mode then? How do you tell the chip that now it's the chip needs to be in a test mode, and the mode that's being selected is the state of so and so pins?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I mean, earlier when I've used, they were dedicated, but the reason I'm hesitating to put it dedicated because of availability. I mean,
Okay, so
yeah.
um,
So if you are luxury, if you, I mean, dedicated is preferred, but I don't know.
okay,
And that's a design implementation specific things which you can put as a dedicated.
okay,
Because this pin-based test mode selection is a very like vertically integrated companies can afford to do this. Like small companies and small packages may not even have this kind of. Because these days everything is done through 1687 and JTAG. So very few will have a pin-based. Only big companies like AMDs and the Nvidias of the world may have this.
okay, okay. So pins may be optional. Mode select happens through JTAG. Is that correct statement?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. So it's up to individual implementer to choose based on their constraints whether they want to do pin-based mode select or whether they want to control everything through JTAG. Right?
Yeah, and there is another mode. I think Siemens already there's a like they do have the low pin count test mode. So in that case, only one pin will be dedicated, and they will tell we are in a low pin count test. So that will help us use whatever budget we have for. That's why I'm saying that maybe one pin only can be dedicated to tell the world that we are in a low pin count test (LPC). Yeah, that's it.
Okay. And once it puts it in test mode, then all the other pins switch to their test state, and right, you may have pins which now become JTAG and whatever they need to become. Okay. Okay. And then pin usage per mode is defined separately, right? Once you know you're in test mode, somehow you set your test mode, and then you define this is you define, okay, in this mode this pin is test pin, that is and these will be basically all scan pins, right? Once you're in test mode, if any pins are used for test, this will be power and scan pins, right? And functional.
And they can be, those pins can be for any other purpose, for DDR or whatever that, but they can only, when they are in test mode, they'll be used for scan inputs and scan outputs if they are bidirectional.
Right.
So
Okay.
when you are not in test mode, they'll be used for some other purpose, reading DDR controller, whatever, or PCI, whatever pins they have.
Yes. So when take one pin, for example, here's what the question I'm thinking. It's a very long question.
GPIO,
So
GPIO pins will be there also there.
Right. So if you have a bidirectional IO, say you have a DDR pin, when you want to use it in one particular test mode, that pin is going to be either input or output, right?
Yeah, that is right.
But it could be input in one test mode, could be output in another test mode.
Normally,
Is that correct?
we will assign the pins for when you say we do pin assignments in the DFT architecture phase. When you assign the pins, we select the pins and make it permanently input or permanently output.
Okay, so you cannot switch the direction of a pin between the direction of a test pin between test modes.
Yeah, because there is, unless there is a certain use case there, I don't see any use case in my mind.
Okay.
I don't think. I mean, there's very rare use case.
Okay. Yeah. No. I do see a case where in one. Actually, let me ask you whether this is valid. Some pins in certain test modes does not necessarily have to be in a test state. They may be they may be acting as purely functional pins. Say you're doing DDR testing, right? You probably don't want to use the DDR pins for tests. In DDR test mode, those pins will be acting as purely functional pins as they normally act, right? Is that a correct assumption?
That is actually right. The reason is when I am saying test mode, we are talking about structural test mode, and we are talking about DDR. They will have their own functional test, right? DDR team, whoever wants to give their test patterns, I think they will have their own mode.
DDR5 is one of the popular scan-in, scan-out.
Okay, but yeah, here's what I'm trying to get to. Maybe the DDR pin is not a good example. Take any functional pin, right, that you want to use for testing. Is there any case where during test mode, during some test mode, you may want to use this pin still as a functional input output, while in a different test mode, this pin will be a test pin?
Yeah, it is possible, I guess. It is possible
Okay.
in the sense, David, let's say you have a VCI or some pin, right? And they will have their own tests like ADC or DAC or something,
Uh-huh.
right? These are also on the IPs on the SOC. I'm just taking an example. So if they want to test, I mean, when I say functional pins, it can be analog pin also.
Yes.
So ADC, DAC, they will have their own analog test, which is basically they will run their own test, and at that time, scan may not be even active. So at
Okay.
that time, that pin will be functional.
Yes. Yeah. Basically, what I'm the general statement I was trying to make is this, right? You talked about 50 pins, right, and 50 test pins.
Yeah.
And we talked about that 10 pins will be used in a particular mode. My assumption is that then the rest of the 40 are free to be used for whatever, right? It doesn't have to be test. It could be functional. Then there's no constraint on those pins being in any. There's no test constraint on those 40 pins which are left over, right?
You need to give me as example, because right now when I say 50, the 50 is my 25 will be inputs and 25 will be outputs. So all will be used. And maybe a single time test mode, something will be only partial will be used, but you will be in some specific test mode, scan test, okay? Then all those pins will be only used for test purpose. But then if you are coming out of that test mode, you are not doing scan, then of course you can use them for some other purpose. That is my visualization.
Yeah. I guess I'm trying to think about the intermediate case where, right, I understand that if you're not in test mode, these pins are going to be functional. And when you're in test mode, in any test mode, these pins will be test pins, right? I understand that. What I was trying to understand, the intermediate case where pick one test mode, right? And for that one test mode, you need only 10 of the pins. Is that possible?
So, but when you are saying you in one test mode, you need 10 of the pins, you cannot run mix and match of the two test modes, right? You will have to leave that 20 remaining pins untouched. That is my use case I've seen. I mean, you cannot just run because 20 pins are not used in that test mode, you can do something else. Unless you have some parallel test, like for example, let me give an example. That's a good point. I mean, you're making. If you want to run some long tests, which takes a long time in parallel with the digital test, which is like a quicker, and it just takes 10 points, 10 pins, and the rest pins, if they are not interfering with the other scan test mode and they are independently running some other internal analog test or something, yeah, you can use it. You see what I'm saying?
Yes. So okay. Yes, I got it.
Yeah. So that's a very and that's a good way to reduce the test time, because normally analog test long time in milliseconds. Scan test finish in microseconds. So that is possible. That you have to do some intelligent multiplexing and logic to make it happen. So on higher level, it is sort of that
Okay.
this is very rare. I mean, you can do it, but again, it's a implementation specific. On higher level, I will not use it. I will recommend, but you can be done.
Yeah. The reason I'm asking all these questions is, right, it's about over constraining the pins, right? Do I need to define if I'm using a pin in a test mode, do I need to make it test pin for all modes or not? And it doesn't sound like it.
Yeah. The reason is, Renu, remember, if you are in a SOC, let's say it depends on if you are in one mode, you are doing certain operation, you cannot just do some functional operation, some other part of the chip. That's what I was suggesting.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm trying to understand. If I'm in a test mode, any test mode, I cannot do functional operation on iOS, which I'm not using for that test mode. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Because iOS, boundary scan is another mechanism where you do boundary scan test for iOS, but that's another standalone test. It is triggered by JTAG from other mechanism, and that will be a separate test, not but they need to be separated. That's what parallel testing is very specific to use case. You need to make sure that you can run two BIS controllers in parallel because their control is coming from one JTAG and you can have two instructions. But pin based, it is sort of difficult to make it happen.
Okay. But JTAG, you basically can run two BIST or many BIST in parallel, right? You just
Yes.
one after the other, bang, 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 and then
Yeah.
you collect
That's
all the
it.
data afterwards.
Right. That's why. So what I was suggesting is, you want to do scan test, right? You can start scan test using pin, and then you can trigger JTAG to run some analog BIST or something, which is basically taking long time. That can be done, but for that analog BIST, if the ADC or DAC IO, they need some data to be input and output from the AT, that can be done so long as those tests are not used for scan test. Then only
Yes.
parallelization can happen.
Okay. Yeah, but okay. Yeah, if it's analog, you're probably not going to use it for scan anyway, right? Or it could be used.
Yeah. That is right, mostly. But if they allow us, you can use, so long as it's sometimes the analog operation also, they use digital pins just to start something or some. I mean, not analog doesn't mean all the pins have to be analog inputs or outputs.
Okay. I got it. Okay. I'm thinking, sorry about the silence. I'm not expert in test at all, so I'm just learning on the fly here. So let me repeat what I learned from all of this, and correct me if I'm wrong. So first, the chip needs to be put in a test mode, and there's three ways to do that. One is low pin count test, which you will have one pin that says right, you turn it into test mode, right, when it's on or off, right, whatever its active level is, puts the chip in a test mode, and in that case, all the functional pins will become whatever they need to become, right? Some will become JTAG pins, some will become scan in and scan outs, right? Whatever they need to become. The other way to turn on test mode is through JTAG. You basically send an instruction, and that will put the chip in a specific test mode. And for a specific test mode, there'll be associated scan in and scan out pins. And the third method is with dedicated test pins, where by default they'll all be 0. That's for functional mode, and whatever test modes you have, you just toggle them to those test pins, and then for each test modes there will be dedicated scan in, scan outs, right? I'm sorry, not dedicated. Some of the pins will become scan ins and scan outs for that mode. And then there's a total set of pins which under different modes are going to be scan in, scan outs, and a IO which is in test mode is going to be one direction only for all the modes. It will not be it will not change the direction of the IO depending on the mode. Did I capture this correctly?
Yeah, that is correct. And except in boundary scan, because boundary scan needs to test the BiDAC port for both input and output. So that is a exception for input only or output only. Because boundary scan is testing the different IO.
Yeah. The way I'm thinking about a boundary scan is you have the pattern, but technically the IOs that are being tested, they're being tested as somewhat normal functional mode, right? If they're inputs, they're tested as inputs. If they're outputs, they're tested as outputs. Or if they're bidirectional, they're going to be tested that way. There's nothing special about the state of those IOs. Basically, they're the IOs under test, not necessarily the test control pins.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's no, I don't need to go and mark these IOs in any special way for boundary scan.
Correct. That is correct. Because
right,
the whole purpose of boundary scan is to test whether boundary scan logic works. It can basically sample the data and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Boundary scan
And
really,
yeah, and that's probably the first test you would do before you do anything else, right?
Yeah, normally
Or no?
we do JTAG bypass just to make sure that JTAG is up and running. That's the whole and soul heart of the chip. So bypass is the first test we run when the silicon comes back, and then only we can do all the other stuff. And of course,
Yes.
in this,
Exactly. Okay. 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 I understand. Okay. This actually makes my understanding of test. I guess I'm becoming thanks to you, I'm becoming an expert in test. Um, I think what I'm gonna do next is capture this in XML, and I'll send it to you and to Boone, and you guys can correct me if you see anything that's off.
Sure.
Okay. Hi, Rashid. Have we met before? Hi, Rashid, you're on mute. Okay. So it's okay. All right.
Have you recorded this meeting, David?
Yes, always.
Okay, good. Because sometimes I forget what I said.
Yeah, so meetings, thank you for asking that questions. There is a place on the Open Compute wiki page. Let's see, open, what was it? ODSA, ODSA wiki.
The reason I'm asking David, because for a couple of other meetings I asked and the recording was gone. There's some problem with the Open Compute's wiki and even the recording. It's gone for
Really?
yeah.
So
After
the way,
2-3 weeks, because I was asking Anu some other meeting and she could not find it.
yeah.
I mean, we practiced some talk and then it's gone. In some other meeting also it's gone. So what I do is when you if you send me that recording, I'll just save it on my external disk for my own copy, because there's no guarantee that the Zoom will keep that recording.
Yeah, so this is what you're correct. So this is what happens. The meeting is recorded on the Zoom account, and it can be accessed from the Zoom account for some time. But then OCP staff takes those meetings and puts them on their servers and puts links in the wiki pages. Right. So you're right. The recording disappears from one location, but then it gets moved to a different location. And that's
Okay, so the
exactly,
different location. I did not get from Manu or whatever. I mean, if you tell me,
yeah.
then we do it. That's okay. I mean, you can talk offline, but I don't have to.
Yeah,
tell you.
I'll probably send a link to that page. Basically, it captures all the meetings that ODSA has, and it captures all the Workstream meetings as well.
Okay.
But they would appear at that location after a couple of weeks, right? When they disappear from the Zoom location, they will reappear on that wiki page at that point. And it's usually, I think it's being done manually, or maybe it's semi-automated, but it's usually a couple of weeks, sometimes a little bit less, sometimes a little bit longer. Yeah, I'm not sure if these guys are screening the meetings for any bad language and things like that and cutting it out or not, just posting it. But yeah, it takes some time for the meeting to move. I will dig that up. I have it somewhere in my email, the link to that page, and I'll send it out. I think I'll send it out to everybody so that you know where it is. Okay, I will do that. I'll take an action item to do that. Other than that, I don't have anything else for today. I will work on the updating the CDXML. I send you guys a copy. You can take a look and let me know if I captured it correctly. And we'll meet next week for PI-SI discussion, and in 2 weeks to continue the test discussion. All right. Any last thoughts or comments from anybody? Rajesh, Boom.
No, thanks.
Okay. Nathaniel, Sudarshan.
How can we access the document here, the CDX workstream, or any other XML data?
Good question. How did you get the invite for this meeting?
I was invited by Pratyush and Tony.
Okay, so the in the invitation there should be a link to the first of all, have you signed up on Groups.io for the?
I have.
Okay, so if you go to the calendar and you open the calendar entry,
Right.
there will be meeting minutes, folders,
Okay.
and things like
Got
that,
it.
links in that, and the Zoom.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, and if somebody else hasn't signed up for that, please do. Okay, any Rashid, any last thoughts or comments? No. Okay, so all right, guys, we'll meet for test in 2 weeks, SIPI next week.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good day and good night.
Good night.
Have a good one.